Dear crypto community and blockchain buddies across the globe, welcome back to Cryptonites, the no BS blockchain channel built with the community for the community. And tonight I have an amazing guest, country manager at Luno, the lovely Maria.
Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for coming here tonight. So Maria, we had lots of really interesting discussions last night. And you did a panel, right?
Yeah, Super Women in Blockchain.
Super Women in Blockchain. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. And that's why I'd love to share a similar message to the community, if that's okay with you. As you know, unfortunately, not many women are a part of this beautiful crypto space. But you got into it, which is great.
Yeah, I did.
Do you mind telling us a little bit about your journey and why you got into this space?
Sure. So yeah, I'm very lucky because in my company, I'm one of many girls, and we have over 30%.
30%?
Females, yeah. So it's really high, like in terms of industry standards across tech, finance. And my story is quite strange because I didn't have any tech knowledge, and I didn't study finance or economics. I studied humanities. So I came from a humanities background, and I was looking for different jobs that would allow me to make some sort of impact, as silly and simple and banal as it sounds. Like, I was always trying to find a project, something that will be quite meaningful. I started working in think tanks, went through sort of public affairs companies, and then landed in tech. Beforehand, I actually worked on a film project in Ecuador, filming in the Andes. So I also tried the art world, but I landed in the tech industry when I worked in London in 2 startups, and most recently a startup where I was basically in charge of expansion internationally for a couple of countries. I was in charge of Singapore, India, Poland, and France. And it was a fantastic job and sort of very well suited for my skill set. But I got into cryptocurrencies along the way. So unfortunately, not as early as you probably, but a couple of years ago. And it was my personal interest. And I always wanted to go into finance, but never had this big push. And then Luno opened their offices, or moved their headquarters to London. I got the job, and it was the best move ever. It's like the most fantastic, inspiring industry full of so many passionate and driven people, and I think it's a once in a lifetime opportunity to make such a huge impact on people's lives, on the world, and it's a really great time to be in blockchain.
That's awesome. Women out there, if you're hearing this, please understand that it is a very exciting space. And it's funny how many studies show that women tend to kind of gear off into liberal studies rather than science. But I have a question related to women. These days there are a lot of headlines saying that without women, there's no mass adoption. Yeah. Now, I would love to hear your comments on that. Do you agree with that statement, or what's your take?
So, yeah, in terms of mass adoption of cryptocurrencies, or generally technologies.
Cryptocurrency.
With cryptocurrency,
yeah,
okay. Well, I believe so. I think it's huge. Getting to resonate with females is incredibly important in any business. With cryptocurrencies, we see, unfortunately, trends that across the markets that Luno is present in, and we're present in 40 markets worldwide, starting with emerging markets like South Africa, Nigeria, Indonesia, Malaysia, and European markets. Across the board, females are less active in the crypto space. In terms of awareness, they score lower than males. So there's a lot of work to be done, and this is for various reasons. For example, since gender plays a role in South Africa, in the research that we commissioned with a big company that conducts market research called Kanta, it's quite obvious that males are significantly more aware and more invested in crypto. But this is because females are less confident with making financial decisions. They're a little bit more risk averse, but I think all of it comes from lack of education like across the board in terms of males and females. We have so much to do in terms of driving awareness. This is one of the missions that we have as Luno, and I guess you guys too. You're trying to empower people to actually understand what we're doing, what it's about, and
Exactly.
let them participate in in this incredible moment and revolution that's happening.
Exactly. So trying to edutain. So actually, our kind of motto is edutaining people, to educate them with a little bit of entertainment as well. Hopefully, we can achieve that all together, right? It's a lack of education that probably scares people, makes them feel risk averse, as you were saying. So tonight you were mentioning a few African countries, which is perfect, a perfect segue to the main theme, something that I'm extremely interested in, because I feel like we spend a lot of time on institutional players, institutional money, not enough time on emerging markets, and especially not enough time on Africa. Because we talk about Venezuela, we talk about Central, South America, but very little focus on the second largest continent in the world, occupying a quarter of all the land in the world. Isn't that crazy, right? Don't you feel like we're not covering or not giving enough, credit and coverage on Africa as a continent?
100%. I think this is also part of the reason why I got into this space in the first place and to this company, because the company was founded in South Africa, and we first conquered markets. We started conquering markets from the emerging markets. So we started with South Africa, through to Nigeria on the African continent, on track to open in 10 to 20 markets in Africa this year. So incredibly exciting. And no matter what other people say in terms of Africa being behind in adoption, etc., we see something completely different. Cryptocurrencies are taking off insanely well in South Africa, in Nigeria. The motivations behind it are very different than compared to what's happening in Europe. So this is a super interesting part, because it's an actual, people ask for use cases and what kind of value cryptocurrencies bring to our life. How can we see this making a difference right now? And people in emerging markets, they do that. They see the value and they use it as an alternative that's more attractive to what they actually deal with in terms of finance.
Exactly. They see the value. There's a need, right? There's a clear case study or use case, as you were saying.
And it's also fantastic how crypto awareness of cryptocurrencies in the industry is incredibly high in emerging markets. And it's almost like the mindset has already changed. The collective mindset, culturally, people are just more open to new technologies, to disruption, and we don't see this in Europe, which is quite interesting, because there's so much capital and education and technology and innovation here, but we're quite far behind.
But it's really good to know that you guys were such a success in South Africa, almost like unbelievable. It's a crazy story, isn't it? How you guys just blew up in that area and showed that there is a clear need for it. I'd love to ask you a question, because obviously Africa is a huge continent, and there's so many different regions, nations, cultures. So I know, based on your experience, that you guys are present in South Africa and also Nigeria. Is that correct? Have you seen any differences or similarities between the two countries, or please let us know.
Sure. So I think there's a lot of similarities. Obviously, South Africa is the most developed country, one of the most developed countries in the continent, and there are huge differences in terms of wealth, compared to Nigeria or other countries. However, what is prevalent is that, first of all, there's high appetite for cryptocurrencies for reasons such as cross-border transfers. So this is a huge pain point for people living there. There's a lot of exchange controls in place in South Africa and Nigeria, where even US dollar is not in circulation. So the exchange rate prices are in the black market, and they're absolutely insane. And people go to cryptocurrencies to make business cross-border. And this is an application that it's not super necessary in Europe, because it's not so difficult for us to do our banking, to get our pay with our money across border within Europe. In Africa, those applications are incredibly important, and so this goes for e-commerce, for cross-border transfers, and we see this across the board. 83% of our respondents in South Africa still said that it's an investment, the reason why they're into cryptocurrency, but 35% said they want to do peer-to-peer transfers. So it's actual, they see the value in making transactions there, and they see it as a better alternative because it reduces their costs of doing this with traditional methods like normal bank transfers. And
that's awesome. So cross-border transactions. We also talked about an investment. Do people use that as a store of value? Obviously, the Zimbabwean dollar is a crazy story. I believe in 2009 it switched to the US dollar, but was it 100 million Zimbabwe dollars equals 1 penny or something like that?
Well, it was absolutely insane, and where you have hyperinflation, there's so much appetite for alternatives, especially for currencies or any sort of assets that are not linked to the central authority, to the government. When you have such a volatile situation politically, you run for alternatives for better place to put your wealth into, and I think Zimbabwe is a perfect example, like Venezuela as well, and different countries that struggle with extremely high inflation, like South Sudan, where cryptocurrency gives even more value into the space.
Yeah, so you're mentioning, so not only Zimbabwe experienced like terrible hyperinflation, but South Sudan as well.
Yes.
Are there any other countries currently, or they're kind of like the main countries that are kind of suffering from hyperinflation?
In Africa, Angola's of the bigger ones. Angola is also in, unfortunately, the pack. I sadly can't disclose yet where we're going to be opening our operations soon, but in the coming months you'll be able to see us spreading around and hopefully bringing a lot more people, making the people's lives easier in countries where with different levels of struggles are present in terms of their finances and banking themselves with the existing infrastructure.
That is very cool. And those 10 countries will be within the African continent?
Yes.
Wow. So not just 2 of the strongest or wealthiest nations, but many people get access to.
Yes, absolutely. Obviously, we want to get presence across the entire African continent. Regulation is a big pain point for companies like ours. We obviously self-regulate. Not having regulation in place doesn't mean that it's illegal. But this obviously is a reason, one of very many reasons why people are scared to get into crypto. So although we see crazy adoption in Africa, it could be even higher if we tackled the things like lack of trust and security in people's minds. The perception of crypto, lack of regulation, lack of education as well. So I think this will. These are the reasons why people are a little bit scared to get into it, but yet there's a little bit more less risk averse than Europeans.
Less risk averse. That's good to be a little bit risk taker once in a while. That's not bad. So in terms of the threats, so like as you're saying, the legal side or the political side, are those kind of like the biggest fears in terms of how cryptocurrency will unroll from this point onwards to the future? Is that what you guys feel
we don't fear regulation at all.
Okay, great.
I think it's an amazing opportunity. We just want to get it as soon as possible.
Okay, great.
So we have been self-regulating forever. We started off as a B2B company in 2013, actually working for South Africa's biggest bank on a Bitcoin pilot. So we had a sort of B2B experience. We moved to B2C because banks were moving too slow in the space. So we pivoted into a consumer company, and I think it's the mission and the messaging around empowering people to sort of upgrade to the better financial system that we are building right now is a more fascinating and compelling cause. But we did work with banks, so we were self-regulating from the very beginning in terms of KYC and AML. So we just can't wait for regulation, and we're trying to help governments across all the countries that we are in to help drive this forward. And to it's quite. I think Japan is definitely the pioneer in terms of this happening. But countries are scared to make that first step, because it's so unprecedented.
The whole world is looking at them,
Exactly.
with their eyes. So you're almost.
But we see a very positive environment in Africa, also in Europe. I mean, I myself am involved in Italy and France, and it's a little bit slower relatively to what's happening in emerging markets, but we have to push for it and work with companies like yours, make partners in this tiny little space and tiny industry that we have to get that going, so that once regulation comes, I think people will be more open to entering into the space. Together
stronger, right? Always try to help each other out. So that's really, really cool. You were talking about how you see lots of growth in Africa. Obviously, you guys are expanding in 10 countries. What are some metrics? Obviously, you had to make that decision. Earlier, you were talking about awareness and actual ownership of cryptocurrency. What are some of the metrics, or do you know a few key figures that make us believe that, okay, Africa will drive growth and will help this become reality?
Yeah, so as I said, we conducted this research across 10 markets, one of them South Africa, and it's absolutely fascinating. We saw 69, so nearly 70% awareness of cryptocurrencies, which is
70%?
huge. 70% of people in South Africa know what
Know
Bitcoin
about
is
cryptocurrency?
or know about cryptocurrency.
Bitcoin itself or cryptocurrency?
Cryptocurrency
No
could be
way,
Bitcoin would probably be the
70%.
driver of that awareness, but 70% of people.
That's more than in Switzerland or France, isn't it?
100%. France is 37% of the French, which is
doubling France.
exactly.
Wow.
Of the people who know about it, 30%, 29% own crypto. So what we see across the board is that in emerging markets that we're in, the awareness is almost nearly definitely over 50% in Malaysia, Indonesia, and South Africa, nearly 80%. But then the ownership is disproportionate to that. Sadly, we're still struggling to get that, from the awareness to ownership. But in European countries, it's there's no country except for Lithuania where the crypto awareness is over 50%, and then the ownership falls down significantly as well. So. As I said, there has been this sort of collective mindset change happening in the emerging markets and not in Europe.
That is amazing. I've never seen 70%. Even in the US, I was in Japan for the past 11 years. And even in Japan, you never get 70% of awareness and more than a third in terms of ownership.
Yes.
That's amazing. So if I may ask, why are people so aware of Bitcoin, cryptocurrency? And obviously, as you said, for owning, there were 3 reasons: as a store of value, an investment vehicle, and then cross-border transactions.
Yeah.
But how did everyone suddenly find out about this?
Well, I think it's usually the case of disruptive technologies that it starts in the emerging markets, because you have such a big gap. They technology is allowing for different communities and different countries to really catch up with where we are, and they feel those pain points around economic equality, inequality, and enormous fees, government instability. So they look for alternatives. Our company, South Africa, and our founders are from South Africa. So we've been in this space a long time, and education is a huge mission of ours. We really do dedicate a lot of resources to creating content that is more accessible, to really tap into people who have never heard of crypto. We're not just trying to sort of entertain and communicate with people that already are in the space. We're trying to really do get
Create
into
new
that
markets,
crypto awareness that will go to the 90%.
Yeah, that would be amazing.
levels. It would be absolutely wonderful. But again, they just have more use cases for cryptocurrency, and that's why they see the opportunity there. I think we'll get there here as well. But
I really hope so. Yeah. So you guys hear it. There's lots of growth potential in Africa, and here's some great metrics that really bring hope, right? And let's stop focusing on institutional players. Let's work on emerging markets and make sure that everyone knows that these are really people in need,
100%.
and that's really important.
We're in an early stage of adoption. I think mass adoption will definitely come. It will not happen overnight. We can't snap our fingers. It's a process. But I think education, regulation are key in getting there, and I'm super pleased to see Africa performing so well whenever we do the research. We also do ongoing research to compare those trends across all the markets we're in, so we'll be publishing more data on that and on the trends, like how's it going over time.
Can't wait. Speaking of which, could you tell us a little bit about Luno and where we can maybe access this data or follow you somewhere?
Sure. So we're a wallet and an exchange. Basically, we're trying to get everyone to be for everyone to be able to buy in a very easy and smooth way in crypto with fiat currency. And then we operate exchanges as well for traders. We also have an API for businesses, merchants, even banks to integrate with crypto with our platform. And we have nearly 3 million customers. So bear in mind.
3 million customers?
Yes.
Wow.
So bear in mind. So we basically dominate in South Africa. We're market leaders in South Africa, Nigeria, Indonesia, Malaysia. In Europe, we're very new, but we have nearly 3 million customers. So it's the growth has been absolutely crazy, and we're doing a lot around education. So like you asked, where we can find this information. We work with a lot of news outlets, but we have a blog and learning portal where we're publishing this data regularly.
Wow. Okay.
We also have a YouTube channel, so Luno TV, where you can also get some snippets of what we've uncovered and what we know about our customers. It's very interesting because it's such a rapidly evolving industry.
It is. Speed of light almost, right? But we'll definitely include your links for the research, for your Luno channel.
Yeah, exactly. We have full reports available and a white paper done on South Africa. It will be probably an interesting read.
That would be amazing. In terms of the 3 million users, are the majority in South Africa at this point?
So we don't disclose the numbers on each market, but I can tell you that we've entered Europe very recently, and the majority so quite naturally, a majority of our customers are in emerging markets. Obviously, I know that Europe is going to sort of go over that very quickly because of various reasons, but even the purchase power and the population that we're dealing with here,
the average
is
investment
huge.
versus
We launched in all sort of in the entire European Union, so that gives enormous opportunity for growth here. But I'm very excited about Africa, so I'll keep you posted about the developments there.
I'm definitely going to follow the news. I feel like this is definitely a continent that needs more exposure. We've talked about Central America, South America, Venezuela many times. So it was absolutely lovely having you tonight, Maria. Thank you so much for preparing facts, figures, and lots of cool stories and anecdotes about a really important market, which is Africa. And we'll definitely follow you, and we look forward to all the reports you're ready to produce. Please come back again soon, anytime.
I can come back anytime. Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure. And we'll be sharing a lot of data with you guys, so I'm sure we can collaborate on a lot of research together as well.
Really appreciate it. Thank you so much for everything.